What's going on, guys? So I'm filming this on the new camera that I have on my cell phone and I wanted to use a microphone, except I realized that the new cell phones don't come with microphone jacks, so I have to buy some kind of little jack or dongle or converter thing that'll plug the mic in. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. Hopefully the audio is not horrible. Today I wanted to talk to you about how to have better conversations in English. Quite often I get asked by my students, how do I have more natural conversations? How do I start a conversation? How do I have small talk with people, whether it's native speakers or whether it is with other learners of English? And I thought I would tell you about a story that I had when I was on the dating scene before I met my wife, Kel. And I had been sort of trying to look into as well, trying to research how to have better conversations. I was learning French at the time, so it kind of overlapped with that. But as well, I wanted to have more natural conversations on dates. I wanted to be able to be as relaxed as possible, but also just have better conversations, to be honest, with women when you're getting to know them. So I did some research and I found a video online that was a lecture from a man to a bunch of other men about how to have better conversations with women. But to be honest, what he was talking about applies to everyone and anyone when it comes to good conversation. Now the trick really is to be interested, not interesting. I'm going to say that again. You want to be interested, not interesting. So the trick is that you need to focus on the other person and be interested in that person. You want to be curious about them. You want to find out more information about them. That needs to be your primary goal. It needs to be that and not to be interesting, i.e. to show off, to tell them about you, to tell them about what you've done, where you've traveled, what you have, how rich you are, what job you have. The idea is that you need to first and foremost be asking the other person about themselves, which will then lead to them, hopefully, responding with questions asking you about you, right? If I had a conversation with you, g'day, how's it going? How's your week been? You know, what have you been doing this week? The person's probably going to tell me, oh, I did this, it's been good, it's been average, it's been bad. What about you? And then they follow up with that kind of question. And you? What about you? So that is a really, really good trick to having more natural conversations. You need to ask the person about themselves, and more likely than not, they're going to ask you the same question back anyway. So even if you do want to talk about you, quite often by starting with the person, the conversation is going to come back onto you anyway and seem more natural. You're going to seem less arrogant. You know, you're not going to turn the person off the same way you would if you were to say, you know, oh, how's it going? I do this, I am this, I've traveled here, I have this, okay? So that was one of the biggest tips, and I think it applies to any kind of language interaction as well. Whatever language you're learning, if you're trying to have a conversation with other people to practice your English, if you're trying to meet people, if you're trying to talk to people at work, if you're trying to have small talk with people that, you know, you meet at the bus stop. The key is to ask them about themselves and just see where the conversation goes. Now you might think, well, I don't know what kind of questions to start with. What sort of things should I ask the person? Quite simply, usually for me at least, you just start with, how are you? How's your day going? How's your week been? So you just ask that person about how they are, and then based on what they say to you, how they respond to that question, that'll determine the next question that you ask, right? The person says, I've had a great week, so I just finished work and I went skydiving. And you follow that up with, skydiving? You know, how did you get into that? How did you start that? Why do you do skydiving? That's really scary. And then they'll tell you a story about that. Oh, I started skydiving because my boyfriend gave me a voucher to do it for my birthday and it was amazing. You know, I did it once and I was addicted. And then you can follow that up. Really? Addicted? Why did you like it so much? So the key here is that this is what we would call, or what can be called, following the breadcrumbs, right? Do you know that that story about Hansel and Gretel who follow the breadcrumbs, I think, or they leave breadcrumbs when they walk into the forest to try and find their way out of the forest. And I think the birds eat the breadcrumbs and they get lost. But the basic idea here is that every time you ask someone a question, they're going to respond to it with information. You know, big surprise. You ask a question, they respond with information. The next question that you want to ask has to be related to that information, because it shows that you're listening, it shows that you're curious about that person, but also it means you don't have to really think too much. You don't have to plan. You don't have to be overly strategic with your conversations. They become more natural, they become more organic, and they just go in a natural direction. So that's the basic trick. That is what I would suggest for having better conversations, whether it's with your partners, whether you're dating, whether you're going to work and having small talk with colleagues, whether you're practicing your language with other language learners, whether you meet someone in the street and you want to have small talk. Usually, for me, I just start with, how are you? You know, how have you been? How's your day going? That's a really good one. How is your day going? Yeah, it's really good. I just finished work. Oh, what do you do for work? I work at a bank down the street. Banking. That's really boring, isn't it? How did you do that? You know, why banking? Oh, I started that because blah, 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 blah. And that is one of the biggest keys, okay, to having good small talk, good conversations. Just remember, be interested in the person. Have curiosity in that person, want to learn more about that person, and don't be interesting. Don't try to be just interesting. I'm this, I'm that, because quite often it doesn't matter who you're talking to. If you're only talking about yourself, people are just going to turn off. They're not going to be interested, you know, especially if they don't know you. If they don't know you, they're not going to really care, right? They're going to think, oh, this person's showing off. But if you're showing interest in that person, you make them feel special. They want to talk more, and they're likely to ask you about yourself anyway. So that's it, guys. Let me know in a comment below, what kind of tricks or tips do you have for having more natural conversations and for starting small talk with strangers or with people you know when you're practicing English. I'm Pete, the host of the Aussie English Podcast, guys. If you haven't signed up to listen to that podcast, if you haven't subscribed to it, you can find it via any good podcast application. So go check that out. Aussie English, just search that. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. And if you want to boost your English even faster, make sure that you join the Aussie English Classroom at aussieenglish.com.au. You can check it out below. And complete my 60+ advanced English courses, especially the Natural Conversations course. This will help you have more natural, spontaneous conversations. Thanks again. See you later.